Okay, so this is a fairly new uncoupling membrane by Ardex. It's called Flexbone. They actually have two versions, the bonded and unbonded. This is the bonded version, and it is an uncoupling membrane. So to install this, Ardex actually recommends the use of their adhesives because they are a thinset manufacturer. They recommend their adhesives to install this on your subfloor and to install the tile. But a polymer modified thinset can be substituted if you want. But they strongly recommend using their products. So how does this work? Well, the structure of the mat is such that there's little ridges that overlap the low part. So when the thinset hardens, the thinset gets locked into the mat. It's a mechanical bond. This is plastic, so usually thinsets don't really stick well to plastics, but that's not how it's supposed to work anyway. It's supposed to be mechanically keyed into the underlayment or the membrane, so any movement that might occur within tolerances under the mat won't be transferred to the tile. The mat is a bonding fleece, which you put this down on, you spread your thinset, then you put this on the thinset, and then you push it in so that the mat is adhered to the subfloor. And then when you install the tile goes on top of the mat with your thinset. It gets keyed into. When it dries, it gets locked into place. The mat can deform under the tile without transferring movement to the tile. Again, within tolerances. And so that's it. And that's how the uncoupling, Ardex uncoupling Flexbone mat works. So on this here, I'm installing a 36 inch by 6 inch plank tile, and I'm going to be using their X5 adhesive thinset. That's the one they recommend, one of the ones they recommend, and so that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so let's get to the actual installation. So to install it, first of all, you need to cut it, and so measure the area or the length that you need to cut. All you need is just a utility knife to cut it. If you don't have a good eye, you can use a straight edge to help you get a straight line. But just a sharp blade on a utility knife, cut right through it, and then the way I do it is I cut it all in and then I lay it down in place so that I have all my pieces ready to be cemented down. Okay, so this is just a small bathroom. I only really need a couple of pieces. So I'm just going to cut around these pipes, and then I am going to cement it down using a polymer modified thinset. And Ardex, as I mentioned earlier, recommends that you use their thinsets for best results. But you can use a premium qualified polymer modified thinset to install the
uncoupling, Flexbone uncoupling mat. So the recommended trowel is a 3/16 inch by 1/4 inch V-notch trowel when you're installing it with a thinset. And I also use a old wooden float to rub onto the mat and push it into the thinset. So the way I generally do it is I rolled it back the mat halfway so that way it stays in place and it doesn't move, and then I will use a sponge with some water to wipe down the substrate. In this case it's plywood, and that will remove any dust and also give the plywood a little bit of a drink so it doesn't absorb the moisture out of the thinset too quickly. Once that is done, and then I'm going to use the flat side of the trowel to key the thinset into the substrate. That way you get a better bond to the plywood. And so I'm going to flat trowel it and key the thinset in. Then I'll flip the trowel over and use the notch side of the trowel to gauge the thinset out to the correct depth. It's important to use the correct trowel so you don't get too much thinset under the mat, or if you use a trowel that's too small, not enough, so it doesn't bond properly. If you've got too much thinset, it can thinset can clump up and you won't get a flat, even installation. And as I said, if you don't use a large enough trowel, the thinset the mat won't stick properly to the floor. So once I've got that spread out, I'm going to roll the mat back into the thinset, and I'm going to use my old wood float. You can use a trowel if you want, or a roller, and I push it into the thinset so that it's well flattened out and pushed into the thinset to get a good bond. So once you've got the mat all laid in and securely flattened into the thinset, you're gonna. It's always a good idea to pick up one corner to make sure that you've got good coverage and good transfer of the thinset. Okay, so it's all installed. I'm gonna let it set overnight and install the tile tomorrow.